Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services today, we ask that you kindly turn off all cell phones and electronic devices or place them on silent. Thank you.
Bruchim habayim, everyone, and welcome. We gathered today to celebrate the life and mourn the passing of Dr. Gerald Jacobs, a man whose life was long, full, and filled with a very particular blend of compassion, devotion, and the sharpest, most hilarious, dry sense of humor. Before sharing more about Jerry, I want to take a moment and welcome the residents of Harrogate, who I heard rented a bus to be here today. What a tribute, what love, and what a reflection of the impact Jerry and, of course, Wilma have had on that community and that he had on the world around him. You know, Wilma told me that the residents where they live have become so close in such a short time, and for this, she is so grateful. I also welcome all of those joining us remotely on the live stream, including and especially his daughter, Lori. Your presence is felt here with us in the chapel. So we stand together today here, just days before Hanukkah begins on Sunday night, the Festival of Lights. We remember a man who brought light into so many lives. I didn't know Jerry in life, only coming into contact with this family upon news of his death. I had the opportunity, though, to spend some time with his wife, Wilma, his daughter, Debbie, and son-in-law, Jerry, who shared with me their impressions of who their husband and father was. I learned that the light that he brought into the world wasn't done with spectacle or fireworks, but with a steady flame of presence, responsibility, care, and love. He wasn't the flashy Unkapachka menorah. He was the strong, dependable shamash, the helper candle, the light that quietly kindles others, helping them to shine. As I learned it, Jerry's story begins in the projects of Jersey City. One of the boys from the block. It sounded to me almost mythic. A kid growing up in the classic neighborhood streets, playing stickball, spending most of his time outside with friends who were like brothers. You can almost see him there, quick and youthful and funny and dry sense of humor even then, I'm sure. The streets shaped him, sharpened his humor, and taught him something essential, how to be loyal, how to work hard. And then somehow this boy from the block in Jersey City went on to graduate from Long Island University and then the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. I believe it was there that he picked up the nickname Hoagie, right? And of course, when he met Wilma on a blind date arranged by her Aunt Marilyn, who, as I heard, was apparently on a mission to set Wilma up with every Jewish doctor in America, Wilma thought his last name was Hogan because of the nickname. It took till the second date, she said, for her to learn that instead she was dating a Jacobs. And fall for him she did. She fell for his humor, for his smile, and even for his voice. Their love, she told me, was a love of opposites. He, the organized, regimented one, she, the artist and free spirit. She'd go with her inspiration. He'd lay out his clothes the night before and set up his instant coffee and toast that he had every morning with precision. And yet something in that balance, those differences created a marriage that lasted 61 plus years. Their courtship alone sounded like something from a movie. She told me they went out 4 times, and then Wilma moved back to California for a year. But they kept in touch because something real had taken root. Returning to Philadelphia in February, they married the following June. I guess when you know, you know. His medical career began in Philadelphia, and then he joined a practice in Bricktown, New Jersey, where he and Wilma raised their family. And what a doctor he was. I heard that he was a true old-fashioned family practitioner, complete with the black medical bag, doing home visits, caring for people across generations. And I learned that his patients adored him because he gave them what we all long for, not just excellent medical care, but presence, steadiness, and humanity. His daughter Debbie was so inspired by him that as a child she became a candy striper, just to be near his world. She shared powerful memories of meeting him at the hospital for it. She even worked in his office for 10 years. His patients loved him because his office was warm, comforting, and safe, even if Jerry himself, as Wilma lovingly said, warm and fuzzy were not quite words to describe her Jerry. He didn't always show emotion, but you knew that you were loved. His actions said what he might not verbalize. He went to every recital, every art opening, every school event for his daughters, and later for his beloved grandson Josh. Was told that he was really proud of you in every way, and especially in baseball, a sport Jerry loved so much that for a time he was a high school baseball umpire. Fit him perfectly. It was structured, it was fair, and with a good vantage point, he could possibly throw in a sarcastic remark or two. A note about you, Josh, I mentioned this when I walked in, that when I met with your parents to learn about your family and your grandfather to plan for today, later that day I got home, I had to do this, I'm sorry, and I saw the Attitudes magazine from the Jewish Community Voice with a center feature on you in your baseball, in your journey. And I exclaimed, I said, I just was talking about this guy. Look, it's right here. So congratulations to you. At home, I learned that he was a stabilizing force, that Jerry was a stabilizing force. I was told that he'd be the one honking the horn from the driveway when it was time to go, waiting for the women that he lived with to come outside and meet him at the car. The one who kept the rhythms and routines going, the anchor, the center of gravity, or as I like to think in advance of Hanukkah, the shamash on the menorah. But he was joyful too. He loved to entertain at his home with Wilma. She said that their home was filled with guests, with energy, and with laughter. I learned about his love of being on the water, on the family boat, and his love of travel, where they went to Europe and to Hawaii and to places all around the world. And those memories, those adventures, those shared experiences helped to shape the family in ways that will last forever. So as we approach Hanukkah, we remember that the miracle of the holiday wasn't the oil itself. It was what the oil allowed. The oil brought light to darkness, hope in a moment of uncertainty, and resilience in a world that feels fragile. His life and its devotion, its humor, its steadiness, its love was a kind of a Hanukkah light. As I said, not loud or showy, but constant, reliable, illuminating the light of others, the lives of others. He was in many ways, as I've said, a shamash candle, the one whose light helps others to shine. So today, we say goodbye, and it hurts, because love always hurts when we lose someone who mattered. But we also celebrate today, because he lived a full life, a meaningful life, a life that added light to the world. And that kind of light doesn't go out. Instead, it becomes a part of those whom the light touched. It becomes part of the world's light. So as Hanukkah begins on Sunday night, I hope and pray that this family feels that in the glow of the candles, there's something of him, his humor, his steadiness, that smile that Wilma fell for, and that gentle but powerful presence that shapes so many lives. May his memory be a blessing. May his light continue to shine. And may the love he gave this world bring comfort to all who mourn him today. So together today, we raise up the best attributes, his best attributes as we remember Gerald Jacobs, Meir ben Moshe HaKohen, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. Our Jewish tradition teaches that while the physical body is temporary, the soul is eternal. That's without end. So today, we gather for sacred purpose. We pray for full and complete rest for Jerry's body. May our time together today have purpose and deep meaning, and may it honor his memory well. My name is Rabbi Nathan Weiner, the Rabbi of Temple Har Zion in Mount Holly, New Jersey. On behalf of myself, my synagogue community, my own family, the team here at Platt Memorial Chapels, and Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, it's an honor to be present with each of you today. Jerry, we note, is predeceased by two of his siblings, his sister, Bobby Wasserman, and his brother, Phil Jacobs, both of blessed memory. He's survived by his loving wife of 61 years, Wilma, and his daughters, Lori and Debbie's husband, Jerry, and his beloved grandson, Josh, and his sister, Susan, and Susan's husband, Monty. May your love and care for one another, God willing, lift you all up as you navigate the weight of this tremendous loss for your family. I'm now going to turn to Psalm 23, a psalm used universally across the Abrahamic faith traditions at moments of loss and grief. I'm going to read it first in the Hebrew, followed by a standard, albeit masculine, translation in the English. If you're comfortable and all are in part in either language, you're welcome to say it with me. If not, you're welcome to receive its words. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo achzar, bin oteshe yarbitzeni al me menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshoveh v'encheni b'maglei tzedek l'ma'an shemo, gam ki elech b'getz ha'mavet lo irara ki atay madi, shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorai, tishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, V'shavti beveit Adonai le'orach yamim. A psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen v'amen. And from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what has been planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time for speaking. Now come to a time for speaking, as both of his daughters have prepared words of a hesped, or a eulogy, in honor of their father. And as Lori's not here physically with us, I'm going to share some words on her behalf that she wrote for this moment. She writes, Dad, I miss you, and I love you. I hope you are there with your dad and mom, your sister and brother, and that you're among love and peace, and that you're especially surrounded by delicious food with fork in hand. Dad, there's such a vortex in your passing, a space so extraordinary and powerful. You've moved many people, entertained many people, made many people laugh, often hysterically, at your wit and humor, your ways of always seeing something funny and interesting in common situations. You are a complex kaleidoscope. A sentimental TV show could move you to tears. I'll always remember that you started to cry during a scene when a father was teaching a daughter a dance routine so she would have confidence to perform it. I always knew that you held deep emotions, often hidden away. Dad, I know you never wanted to be vulnerable, but your sensitivity was always present. You expressed thoughtfulness and awareness of those you love and the gifts you give. You remembered my favorite quote, dance like no one is watching. You found me a PBS video of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, the backbone of my work, another gift. You got tadpoles with me at the creek to watch them grow to become frogs, and you taught me how to remove splinters without it hurting. Dad, you told me about growing up in the projects and playing stickball with Buzzy and Danny. I asked you what your favorite memory was with your dad. It was going with him to the diner and getting a meal of cooked vegetables. I loved all of your memories around food. My favorite memories were the trips to New York City. This taught me how to be fearless and comfortable in the unknown. You made Deb and me, as little girls, ask the clerk at stores for what we wanted or what we needed rather than speaking on our behalfs. You made the world accessible. Your strength, intelligence, and eagle eye for perfection always inspire and challenge. You are and always will be an exceptional force. Dad, you said you felt like an imposter in fancy restaurants and were scared someone might ask you to leave. Nothing could be further from the truth. Everybody loved you and was enjoying your company, whether it be at a hotel, a restaurant, or a vacation tour. You were always stepping out beyond the fourth wall, taking people by surprise and taking the experience out of the norm to something memorable. You're a real-life performer. Next go-around, you definitely should be an actor and a writer. You could own a restaurant that serves every type of food offered from every country, free for anybody who wants to learn what the world has to offer. There would be lines out the door. You would teach me something new, then point it out and say, "See, I taught you another thing." We talked about the afterlife together and whether it existed. You said that you believed nothing existed before you were born and everything existed when you were here, and then upon your passing, everything would cease to exist. Well, I'm here to teach you something new, Dad. No offense, but you were wrong. We're still here, and here because of you, and your presence remains with us too. There's a picture of you when you were a little boy about 8 years old, wearing knicker-like shorts and leather shoes that were way too big for you. Fast forward 80 years. You've achieved, experienced, and influenced. You made it as a successful and beloved physician, father, husband, an uncle, grandfather, brother, and then some. To me, you are more than a father. You're a deep soul. The very few have seen, they have all experienced. Your capacity to love us could also break your heart. A training class you took had you write the names of loved ones on slips of paper. Then they said, how would you feel if those people were gone? This was to learn about getting in touch with your emotions. You graduated top of the class. You also asked for the slips of paper back. They had Debbie's and my names on them. I love you very much, and I know that you loved all of us very much. I hope. It wasn't typically known that you were superstitious, but I hope you touch the outside of the plane on your way. You hold your hands at takeoff, and that you always drive safely. I love you always. Now going to call on Debbie to share some words.
Looks like a lot of papers, but look at the font. It's gigantic. I'm honestly in disbelief that I'm standing here today. This is something that each of us knows that will happen one day, but when it actually happens to you, you're never ready. But here we are. So please allow me to tell you a little about my wonderful father, Dr. Gerald Jacobs, known to many of you as Jerry, and also the original Dr. J. He was born on April 19th, 1937, and was raised in the projects of Jersey City, New Jersey. He was the oldest of 4 children. It was himself, Barbara, Phil, and Aunt Susan. Growing up, my father often talked about the simple joys of life, of childhood, especially playing stickball in the streets with his friend. One friend in particular, Dickie, became a character in his countless stories that reminded us that no matter how far he went in life, he never, ever forgot from where he came. Dad was the first in his family to attend college, studying at Long Island University, and from there he put himself through medical school at PCOM, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. And as a rabbi mentioned, it was in Philadelphia that a nice Jewish woman from California, my mom, was completing her occupational therapy internship. And thanks to my Aunt Marilyn, they went on a blind date, and that blind date turned into a 61-year marriage. They married in 1964 and built a life rooted in shared values and shared dreams. After they married, they settled in Brick, New Jersey, where my father became a partner in Cedar Bridge Medical Group, the largest medical practice in town. To his patients, he was more than a doctor. He was truly an old school doctor. And it's true, he carried a leather medical bag and a stethoscope, and he went on house calls. My sister and I would go with him from time to time, and it's at that time we realized what my father did for a living and how much his patients loved him. His patients would send him holiday cards and always include a $5 check to my sister and I for many years. They absolutely loved my dad. Many of my friends would go see my father as a doctor, and the funny thing was, back in the 1970s, family doctors would do gynecological checkups. My girlfriends, unaware of who my father was, would come to my house, see my dad, and proclaim in horror, "Oh my God, I had no idea that was your dad. I am so embarrassed." I worked in my dad's office since I was 10 years old. My first job was counting penicillin pills to put in the containers and label them. I worked there all through college, in the file room in the basement, answering the calls, making appointments. I loved working there. To say the staff from his office was a family is an understatement. Every nurse, receptionist, doctor, and staff that worked there was truly part of the family, and we were part of theirs. It was a true family practice. I loved working with my dad. We would commute to work together, and he introduced me to coffee. We loved instant coffee, and our brand back then was Sanka. We each would have a piece of toast with butter and strawberry, drink our Sanka coffee, and off to Cedar Bridge we would go. Then for lunch, we would stop at this awesome hot dog truck on the corner of Cedar Bridge Avenue, and I can still taste how good they were. Working at Cedar Bridge with him was some of my fondest memories. As Rabbi mentioned, I became a candy striper because my dad thought it would be a good resume builder. I secretly think he thought I would get into the medical profession, but not after that. I would do rounds with him at the hospital and then do my candy striper duties, and then I would meet him at the staff cafeteria for lunch. I really loved those times. And I also believe that I was a son my father never had. He taught me how to play and love baseball. We'd have countless catches in the backyard, and one of my fondest memories was watching the Phillies win the World Series in 1980. We freaked out, and I still have every baseball card from that team that he gave me. Everyone who knew my dad knew that he had an awesome sense of humor. So dry and sarcastic, not like me at all. My father and I loved to play practical jokes on everyone. I was his true sidekick. We were always the party house, and at our famous pool parties, we would play the classic Harlem Globetrotters gag by chasing each other around the pool with a bucket of water going back and forth. Then I would run into the shed, switch buckets, and my dad would go behind one of the unsuspecting guests, and I would hurl a bucket filled with pieces of paper as they screamed. We loved doing that. Oh, at work, the victims were the nurses and staff. One day, he had some slime. He walked up to his lab technician, put her hand out, and plopped the slime in her hand and said, "Could you please analyze this mucus?" She would gag until she realized what it actually was. He would hold an empty coffee cup and then walk and pretend to trip into the receptionist and pretend he was dropping coffee, and they would scream. One of my favorite stories, it's a little off color, so I apologize. One of my favorite stories of my dad was when he was presenting to a group at the local Rotary Club. He was in front of local officials and very high up members of the community. I believe the mayor was there. The topic was new programs that he was proposing to incorporate into the schools. He went on to describe that he felt that the sex ed was not taught properly in schools. He proposed that it be more realistic to give kids a real idea, and that we actually bring in strippers and prostitutes to perform acts in front of the class, even starting at the elementary school level. Well, as you can imagine, everyone completely freaked out, screaming, "This is obscene," and "You're crazy, what are you thinking?" But he never once broke character. After things settled down, he said, hold on. I have some visuals that will explain this better." And then he held up a sign that said, "April Fools." Everybody was doubled in laughter. I actually have the video if any of you want to see it. It's worth watching, and it's classic Jerry. Another quick April Fool's story with my dad, and I honestly think April Fool's was his favorite day, mine too, kind of, was he was presenting in front of some physicians, and I'm guessing they're urologists. He said he had come up with a new way to test the sugar levels in urine, held up the urine sample, swirled around, looked at it from all different angles, and then proceeded to drink it and swirl it around in his mouth. And he said, "Yeah, I think it's a little high." And then he obviously told people that was apple juice. That is who he was, the consummate jokester. I have a million stories like that, but I don't want to keep you here all day. To my sister Lori and I, he never missed anything we ever did, whether it was a theater production we were in, an art show, a choral thing that I was in, gymnastics, sporting event. He was always there. He took me to every one of my auditions for college. He helped my sister move into her apartment in Boston, Syracuse. He was always there. Later, I went to Ithaca College, and my father was so proud. Now that I'm a parent, I can appreciate the fact that it's really fun to embarrass your kid. But when you are the kid, it's awful. My father thought that it would be really funny to purchase my mom and him matching Ithaca sweatshirts that were white sweatshirts and sweatpants. And they showed up on Parents' Weekend looking like the good humor guys. I was mortified then, but obviously I treasure that memory now. Remember that, Josh. Speaking of college and parenthood, once again, I'm taking the perspective of kid versus parent. My parents were very overprotective, and thus, shocker, so are Jerry and I. I know you guys didn't know that. But before the days of cell phones, my father gave me a CB radio to use when driving to and from Ithaca. My handle was Midget, and he taught me how to speak to the truck drivers and ask them if there were any smokies on the road, which was slang for police. The truck drivers helped me during the drives, and it was fun as I got closer to home to speak to my dad on the CB radio. Our family used to go on camping trips a lot when I was a kid. Loved camping. One of the trips, all the dads disappeared into the woods saying they were collecting wood, and the moms and the kids went on a hike. And the leader, Walt DeRay, who was one of the fathers who happened to own a Sunoco gas station, was taking us on a hike. Started to tell us about the Jersey Devil. We began to get a little nervous as the hike went on and the story continued. Finally, we came to a clearing, and Walt said, "Listen carefully. It's the sound of the Jersey Devil. It goes like this. Coo-coo-coo! Coo-coo-coo!" So we were all like, oh my God. And all of a sudden, we heard, "Coo-coo-coo! Coo-coo-coo!" And we were freaking out. And the cooing kept going. And all of a sudden I said, "Hey, that's my dad." And they all started laughing hysterically. And one of the dads carried the wings from the Sunoco station and illuminated them to make it look like the Jersey Devil. Another camping trip, we had rented a camper. And while leaving, it was very muddy. And a young girl in the camper next to us slipped, and the camper ran over her leg. Remember this? They were all looking for medical attention and freaking out. My dad jumped out of the camper and went to her aid. He took an old newspaper, rolled it up, and fashioned a leg splint, MacGyver style. He helped her to get up, and he got her to the hospital. And I was in awe watching him do this. And I thought to myself, wow, my dad's pretty cool. Aside from my mom, my sister, Josh and his family and friends, my father loved his boats. His first one was a bow rider, and he named it Skinny Dip. He loved taking us out on the Matineconk River, where he would go crabbing and swimming. My dad loved traveling, great meals, and loved a good drink. His drink of choice was a Stoli martini, chilled, with olives on the side. But 9 times out of 10, the waitstaff would not get it right. So he came up with an idea. He printed out his drink order on little slips of paper, and he kept them in his wallet. So when it came time to order his drink, he would simply give this piece of paper and say, "Please give this to the bartender." And it was never wrong again. And of course, there's Josh. To say that my father was obsessed with Josh, his only grandchild, is an understatement. When I was pregnant, I had to have an amnio because I was a mother of mature age. Without thinking, I sent the results to my dad. He's a doctor. I wanted him to read them. And I didn't realize that it would reveal the sex of the baby. Jerry and I didn't want to know, and I was freaking out that I'd sent this to him. We didn't want anybody else to know. And my father kept it a secret for over 4 months, and it must have been very difficult, but he knew how much it meant to me. He adored Josh, and he loved watching him play baseball or all the other sports and would brag to him everywhere. One of my favorite stories was when we were celebrating my parents' anniversary, and we got a flat tire. The Migdens will remember this one. We got a flat tire. We had a police escort and finally made it, and Jimmy and Susan probably remember too. We had to leave early to get to Josh's district baseball game, and we barely made it in time. Ran out of the car, and he got suited up, and Josh's first at bat, he hit a home run. I called my father, who was still at the party, and I said, "Josh just hit a home run." And I could hear him scream, everyone, listen, Josh just hit a home run." And everybody was just screaming. He was so proud. He was Papa, and he had a very special relationship with Josh and their shared love of baseball. Fast forward to 2022, my parents moved out of their childhood home that we had lived in for 56 years, moved to Harrogate in Lakewood. It was such a gift to have them there. Unfortunately, my father only got to enjoy the many activities and his friends for about 7 months before he got sick and the dementia began to get worse. He got moved to the memory care side, but my parents were both in the same building, and my mom would visit him every day. The staff at Harrogate took incredible care of my father and was so kind and loving to him. One of the nurses would tell me, she whispered in my ear in her Jamaican accent, "Oh, Debbie, he's our favorite." And I believe that from the bottom of my heart, that he was one of their favorites. I want to thank the group from Harrogate that are here today, Judy and Marty Steinweiss. They rented a bus so they could be here today, and I cannot express how much it means to my mom, sister, and I. Thank you. I could go on and on with stories and memories of my father. For crying out loud, I have 59 years of stuff to share. But the last few years have been extremely difficult and heartbreaking to watch the man you know and love as your father slowly disappear before your eye and become a shell of himself. But I will forever cherish that I had him here physically and was able to hold his hand and look him in the eyes and tell him, "I love you." Every now and again, I would get an "I love you" back. It was beyond special. When a loved one has dementia, you treasure the little things. My mom, my sister Lori, Jerry, Josh, Aunt Susan, and Uncle Monty want to thank you each for being here. And I thank you, all of you who reached out via text, email, phone, Facebook, and those who are watching on the live stream. My father would have been completely touched and blown away. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will leave you with this. He never suffered. He was in no pain. He enjoyed the Springdale Farms apple cider donuts and strawberry rhubarb pie, which were his favorites up until last week. And he loved every day until he passed away peacefully in his sleep. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you very much for giving me the time to talk about my father, Gerald Jacobs. Every time we would hang up the phone when talking to each other, he would end the conversation with, "Drive carefully." Wherever you are, Dad, I love you. Drive carefully.
It's really beautiful. Thank you. With these thoughts and memories and devotions in mind, we move to El Maleh Rachamim, the central prayer of a Jewish memorial service. I'm going to read it first in English, followed by chanting it in the Hebrew. If it's comfortable for you to do so, I ask you to please rise. O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of the Shekhinah, your holy presence, to the soul of Gerald Jacobs, who has entered eternity. Master of mercy, let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Adonai is his inheritance. May he rest in his resting place in peace. And let us say, Amen. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hamitzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, b'malot kedoshim utehorim, kezohar harakia mazhirim, et nishmat Meir ben Moshe HaKohen, shehalach le'olamo, b'gan Eden tehe menuchato, lachen bal harachamim yastirehu b'seter kenafav le'olamim, v'yitzror b'yitzror hachayim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom amishkavo, Vinomar, Amen. You may be seated again. Our time together here at the chapel is drawing to a close. Those who are joining for interment will make our way in processional to Crescent Memorial Park in Pensacola for interment. Guests, family, and friends are welcome beginning around 3:45 p.m. at the home of Debbie and Jerry, which is at 120 Saddlebrook Court. That's one word, 120 Saddlebrook Court in Cherry Hill, beginning at 3:45, and there'll be a brief shiva there as well. And the family asks that donations in lieu of flowers please be made to the Dementia Society of America in memory and in honor of Jerry.